Do I feel lucky?
Well, do you, punk?
On this third planet from the sun, Homo sapiens, or human beings, are the only species that have emerged in the entirety of this planet's existence to start a civilization, well, as far as we know. With civilization came the rule of law and the concept of human rights from the Ten Commandments, the Code of Hammurabi, the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights in the US Constitution, and many others. With humans surpassing other Earth species, developing intelligence, history, and philosophy, there are always people in every civilization and every era that did not conform to the standards set by society. Failure to adhere was usually punished by its own citizens or someone wealthy enough to have their own posse, with justice being swift and harsh, sometimes leading to injustices down the road. We go forward many years later to the 19th century, where the police force was established in many cities, including San Francisco, as a result of the gold rush. Police officers enforced the laws of their municipalities, making sure the citizens were not only safe, but obeying the law at the same time. However, there are many bad actors that make their way into larger cities, usually opportunists who are willing to hurt people in order to get what they want and hide behind the law when things take a wrong turn for them. Skip forward to the late 1960s and early 70s. The media has been more hyper-focused on the rights of the accused versus the rights of the victim. And many horrendous crimes that have occurred in the Golden State, from the Manson murders to the Zodiac killer, has got many people thinking. Has law enforcement abandoned us? Are the rights of criminals more important than the rights of the victim? Is there no hope against such vile criminals? What would happen if a serial killer who was unscrupulous in his actions preys on the city of San Francisco, a city that constantly ties the arms of its own police force? What if there was one dedicated homicide inspector that sees through what the killer is trying to accomplish and will go outside the law to pursue justice, the ends justifying the means sort of way? Well, these questions will be addressed in the 1971 Don Siegel-directed Clint Eastwood film vehicle, Dirty Harry. I discovered this movie back when I was in 6th grade. I was sick a lot with asthma, so I stayed home and would spend the day going through my dad's VHS collection. It was usually under the TV, and inside the stand, there was a copy of Dirty Harry in its big case that you could open up and take the movie out of the recess. I watched it and I couldn't believe what I saw. I have never felt such a thrill watching an older movie, let alone a cop movie. I rewatched it several times ever since. It's now one of my top favorite films of all time, and it never gets old. I once did a paper on it to talk about violence in movies for my English composition class in college, and I wish I would have kept it to include in this review because I never have enjoyed writing a paper as much as I did then. And as I got older, there was always something new to take away from every subsequent viewing of the movie. I made sure to tell my friends about the movie, and I actually got a few to watch it, but before we get into the film itself, let us take a look at how this controversial film project came to be. The Dirty Harry project originated with husband and wife writing team Harry and Rita Fink, who wrote a story about an aging New York detective who was obsessed with hunting a serial killer in New York City that he was willing to put the law aside for, hence blurring the line between cop and criminal. Warner Brothers purchased the script and wanted either Sidney Pollack or Irvin Kershner of Empire Strikes Back to direct the film, with John Milius of Conan the Barbarian to rewrite the script. Milius made the character a loner, a stoic figure that carried a very big gun, a hunter's gun, to hunt the serial killer antagonist of this feature. Many actors were approached, but declined due to the controversial subject matter of this film, and even going as far as to say it's right-wing and even fascistic. One actor, a certain man who has his own salad dressing, suggested that the subject matter from this film would fit as a vehicle for Clint Eastwood, who just came off working on the Dollars trilogy in Italy and was directing his first film, the thriller Play Misty for Me. Warner Brothers offered Eastwood the role, who was interested in the rights of the victim theme, but he'd only accept on certain conditions. First, he wanted his mentor, director Don Siegel, to direct. Second, he wanted the setting to change to San Francisco, his home. Eastwood was concerned about the rights of the victim and felt that was being overshadowed by the rights of the criminal, hence why he was interested in the role in the first place. Clint Eastwood's defining role, Dirty Harry, was set loose in the theater to deliver some brutal box office justice. We begin the movie with a tribute to all the San Francisco police officers who died on duty for the past 100 years. It fades to a murder that occurs from a gunman on the roof of a building, sniping a woman swimming in a rooftop pool across the street. It then cuts to Clint Eastwood making his first ever appearance on screen as Dirty Harry. He investigates the body at the pool and then makes his way across the street to the rooftop of the building with a majestic shot of San Francisco, where he finds the gun shell and a note. We are now in the San Francisco mayor's office, where they review the note that the killer left, demanding $100,000, or the killer will kill either a Catholic priest or a black person. Signed, Scorpio. Dirty Harry is called into the mayor's office shortly after. We learn Dirty Harry is in fact Inspector Callahan of Homicide and oversees the case. We learn quite a bit about him in this scene, where he is willing to be a smartass to the mayor himself when he says he was sitting on his ass for 3/4 of an hour after being asked for a report. Harry advises the mayor not to play the creeps game or it could get someone killed. He offers to meet with the killer, with which the chief of police frantically says, "Oh no, that would be a major bloodbath." We learn from the mayor Harry has a history of shooting first and asking questions later, like in the Fillmore district, and doesn't want a repeat of that since it's his policy. Harry retorts saying that when a man chases a woman with intent to commit rape, he shoots the bastard. The mayor questions how he established that. Harry points out a simple observation that a naked man with a heart-on is chasing a woman through an alley with a butcher's knife. He ain't out collecting for the Red Cross. Harry is at lunch now, eating a hot dog at a local diner, where he notices a robbery has taken place down the block. He walks towards the scene and takes out his Model 29 Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world. The robbers fired the first shot at him, hitting him in the leg. Harry automatically retaliates and kills all but one of the robbers. He approaches the robber, wounded on the ground, and gives his iconic "Do I Feel Lucky" speech. The robber calls his bluff. Harry pulls the trigger. Turns out the chamber is empty. Harry walks away with a smile as the robber nearly pisses himself. Harry is now in the doctor's office working on his wounded leg, telling the doctor it's no big deal. The doctor jokes and says, "I don't tell you how to beat a confession out of a prisoner." He brings up Harry's wife and immediately apologizes. Interesting. A little insight into the salary of a policeman shows Harry is willing to pull the pants off the wound instead of the doctor cutting it off. $29.50 in 1971? Let it hurt. We see San Francisco police helicopters under Callahan's direction patrolling the city with multiple officers standing guard on the roofs of multiple skyrises. More epic shots of the city are shown here. Back in the office, Lieutenant Bressler, Harry's superior, played by Harry Gardino, tells Harry he must take on a partner for the new case, with Harry objecting on the grounds of not having the time to break in any newcomers and ask for DiGiorgio instead. We learn all of Harry's partners either end up in the hospital or they end up dead, so he wants someone who knows what the hell they're doing. Harry has no choice in the matter, however, and we meet his partner, Chico Gonzalez, a college graduate with a degree in sociology. Harry warns him not to get himself or those around him killed. Chico asks Harry why everyone calls him Dirty Harry, with DiGiorgio chiming in telling us, the audience, that Harry plays no favorites, he hates everybody, and lists a whole bunch of derogatory slurs that I cannot say here. A voyeur is lurking on a rooftop near the St. Peter and Paul Church, reading an ad from the San Francisco Chronicle, dissatisfied with the city's response. This is confirmation that that man is Scorpio, and he now has his eyes set on a new target, a black homosexual man. He has the man in his crosshairs, but is thwarted at the last minute by the police in the helicopter. Scorpio flees, and they lose him. I guess they were talking instead of looking like they were supposed to. The hunt continues at night as we see the lively San Francisco at night from Harry and Chico's perspective, and all of its gloriously seedy establishments. Harry follows someone matching Scorpio's description all the way to an apartment, but it turns out to be the wrong man. An 804 is in progress, hence Harry and Chico respond and arrive at the scene. A man's threatening a suicide jump. Harry takes over the scene and gets lifted to the man. Instead of trying to talk him down, he simply asks his name since it will be almost impossible to identify the body when he eventually falls. Harry recounts a similar story, making the man want to throw up. Harry is like, "Don't do that. Think of the people down there looking up. Ugh." This pisses the man off so much that he jumps on the lift to attack Harry, but Harry manages to subdue him and knock him unconscious, hence saving his life. Dirty Harry does every dirty job that comes along. The next morning, Scorpio strikes again, murdering a young black boy near Sierra in Texas. Chico is beside himself. Harry says to him, "Welcome to homicide." The chief and Lieutenant Bressler want to catch Scorpio in the act, so they bait him into returning to the same rooftop in North Beach near St. Peter and Paul Church by having all the other rooftops locked or patrolled by the police. Harry and Chico end up being staked out on the rooftop across the street, armed with a .458 Magnum rifle. We learn the priest at the church offered himself up as bait. As they're waiting for Scorpio, Harry turns voyeur like he was in the alleyway earlier. Scorpio shows up and a firefight starts. Scorpio shoots the Jesus Saves lights to make his escape and they lose him. A policeman was killed in the process. He's loose again in North Beach. The following morning at the office, we learn Scorpio kidnaps a young girl in retaliation named Mary Deacon from a ransom note he sent with some of her hair and one of her teeth. Harry states the girl is already dead, but the mayor has agreed to pay, and Harry volunteers to be the bagman. But Chico is not allowed to support him due to the mayor's promise of no tricks. Harry defies the mayor by borrowing a wire so that Chico could support him within 2 to 3 blocks. Harry receives the bag, and as a measure, tapes a switchblade to his lower leg. Harry is waiting with the bag at Marina Harbor. He receives a phone call from the nearby booth. Scorpio gives Callahan instructions on where to go next, hence sending Harry running all over the city, from Forest Hill Station to catch the K car on the next phone. He must run to the phone by the hamburger stand at Aquatic Park, but gets accosted by muggers who demand the bag. He hits them with the bag and brandishes his magnum, and they flee. He gets to the phone, but not before an old man picks it up. Harry takes the phone, but Scorpio hangs up. He then calls back and tells Harry to go up to the giant cross at Mount Davidson Park. Harry gets there, and Scorpio shows himself disguised with a ski mask, instructs him to drop the bag and throw the gun away. Scorpio proceeds to beat Harry up with the gun and tells him he intends to let the girl die. Chico comes and saves Harry just in the nick of time with a firefight ensuing, but it results in Chico getting wounded, but enough time for Harry to take out his switchblade and stab Scorpio in the thigh. Harry is too weak due to his injuries to pursue Scorpio as he hobbles away with that bloody leg. Chico is taken to the hospital as Harry is slowly recovering in Bressler's office. Police chief is pissed and wants to know how they managed to screw everything up. Harry takes the blame. Park Emergency reported a man with a knife wound to the leg. Therefore, Harry visits the clinic, this time with DiGiorgio, and questions the doctor. The doctor recognized Scorpio from selling flyers at Kezar Stadium and lives there with the groundskeeper's permission. Harry and DiGiorgio proceed to Kezar Stadium. Harry climbs the fence despite his injuries and breaks and enters the groundskeeper's office. It appears that's the room Scorpio lives in. Scorpio makes some noise and attempts to flee onto the football field. Harry pursues with DiGiorgio turning on the stadium lights. Harry yells, "Stop!" with Scorpio stopping and putting his hands up. Harry shoots him in the same leg as his knife wound. As Harry walks up to him, Scorpio is screaming for medical aid as Harry demands the location of the girl. Scorpio repeatedly says he has a right to a lawyer, causing a stand on the wound, effectively torturing him in a chilling upward tracking shot away from them. Unfortunately, it is too late, as the girl was dead by the time they found her in the manhole near the Golden Gate Bridge. Harry is beside himself, witnessing the extraction. The next day, he goes to see the district attorney, who admonishes him about breaking and entering without a warrant and torturing suspects. As a result of Harry's actions at Kezar Stadium, the DA is going to have to throw out the case because the evidence is now inadmissible. Harry says that there was a girl dying and that the law is crazy. The DA warns Harry not to harass Scorpio, but he assures them Scorpio will kill again. Why? Because he likes it, that's why. Harry ends up following Scorpio around, off the clock, including a park with kids and a strip club. Scorpio, as a result, goes to an abandoned building where he pays a man $200 to beat the crap out of him. He ends up in the hospital and tells the press that Harry Callahan was the one that beat the crap out of him. The chief asks Harry if he did it. Harry asks him if he wants to star, but the chief just wants an answer. Harry admits he was following Scorpio on his own time, but states anyone would know Harry didn't do that to him. Why? Because he looks too damn good, that's why. Harry visits Chico at the rehab facility where he's recovering from his fight with Scorpio at Mount Davidson. Chico tells Harry he doesn't intend to return to the police force and decides to pursue a teaching career instead. Harry wishes him well and leaves alongside Chico's wife. She tells him she can't get used to the stress of being the wife of a police officer and asks Harry how his wife handled it. We learn that Harry's wife has been dead for some time as she was killed by a drunk driver. He tells her he supports Chico's decision, stating that it's no life for the two of them. But when she asks why he stays, Harry doesn't have an answer for that. Scorpio later that night assaults the owner of a liquor store known for its multiple robberies and steals his gun, a Walther P38, and of course 1/5 of Seagram's as well. He proceeds the following day to hijack a school bus full of kids, threatening the driver, and calls the mayor's office to demand a final ransom, including $200,000 in a jet airplane, while keeping all the hostages after he takes off. The mayor once again promises no interference, causing Harry to demand that they stop playing this game, and this time refuses to be the bagman. Scorpio has the kids singing nursery songs, but one of the kids notices that they are going the wrong way and wants his mother, causing Scorpio to hit some of the kids and threatens to kill all their mothers. He tells the driver to get off the highway, but as they get off, in the coolest shot in the history of cinema, Harry is standing on top of an overpass, just waiting for Scorpio and the school bus to pass under him. Harry jumps on top of the bus, holding on while Scorpio tries to shoot him from below. The driver screams, and Scorpio hits her in the head, knocking her unconscious, and crashes the bus into a rock quarry, sending Harry flying into a rock pile. Scorpio flees into the plant, with Harry pursuing. Harry corners Scorpio, but takes a kid hostage and holds him at gunpoint, demanding Harry drop the gun. Harry lowers the gun, but does a fast draw and hits Scorpio in the shoulder. The kid flees, and Harry advances on him. Scorpio gets up and tries to get the gun, but Harry points his magnum at him and asks him the same thing he asked the bank robber earlier. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Do you feel lucky? And with great disgust he says, "Well, do you, punk?" Scorpio grabs the gun and Harry shoots him into the water, dead. Harry takes out his star and throws it into the water, and he walks away. This concludes Dirty Harry. Wow, what an emotional roller coaster ride this was. Harry Callahan to me is Clint Eastwood's defining role, with Dirty Harry being the archetypal action crime thriller which would be replicated in many movies thereafter. The movie pulls no punches and shows the ugliness of what cops have to go through, especially in the face of a maniac who continually holds San Francisco for ransom, murdering people until he gets what he wants. Andrew Robinson delivered a very memorable performance as the psychotic Scorpio killer, and is probably one of the best villains in film. Despite being an unknown actor at the time, Siegel hired him because he had the face of a choir boy, creating that creepy aspect of Scorpio. The film is very violent, where we see people being sniped, including a child. Harry and Scorpio are both roughed up badly, and especially Scorpio, who has a deep knife wound in the leg and a bullet to the same leg, and then Harry applies pressure on that bullet wound to torture him. It's crazy, and because of that, this movie was deemed controversial and was labeled fascist by a review from Roger Ebert, and the more famous review by Pauline Kael calling it a deeply immoral movie. I feel the critics are too harsh on the character of Harry Callahan and the movie itself, and have never been the victims of violent crime, so they can't quite empathize with those who are affected by such things. Harry in the beginning of the movie states his policy is to shoot the bastard who chases the woman with intent to commit rape and perhaps murder. Is that right? Or when he breaks into the Kezar Stadium and tortures Scorpio for the girl's whereabouts, was that justified? Or perhaps daring the criminal to make a move against him when he's holding them at gunpoint, asking them if he fired 5 shots or only 6. Is that downright immoral? These are hard questions that I myself am not quite qualified to answer, because I believe that all life is precious, no matter what, and that even the vilest of people should be given the chance to change. Because as Charlie Chaplin said in his great dictator speech, we should all want to help each other. Human beings are like that, to live by each other's happiness, not by their misery. Unfortunately, there are also times where cops are not given a choice, and it's either the life of the victim or the criminal, and I would choose the victim, as any human being should. During the scene in the football field, I feel Harry torturing Scorpio was somewhat justified because of the imminent danger of the kidnapped girl, while at the same time thinking that he overstepped when he shot Scorpio after the latter stopped and put his hands up. The DA scene was unrealistic because I'm sure they would have gone Scorpio on assault with a deadly weapon for Chico and assault for Harry. The exigent circumstances would have allowed Scorpio to be charged with multiple things, and he wouldn't have simply walked as the movie allowed. I don't think Harry is a villain. Flawed, yes, perhaps the thrill to hunt criminals due to that .44 Magnum being a weapon primarily for hunting. Everything Harry did in the movie was to protect the rights of the victim and was willing to trample on the rights of the accused to achieve the former. I think everything he did in the name of justice and cared more about it than anyone in the San Francisco justice system. The notion of Harry's morality will be further explored in the 4 sequels, starting with the next one in the series, Magnum Force. Does Harry have any limitations? Dirty Harry is a masterfully crafted crime thriller that features memorable performances from Eastwood, Robinson, and all the other supporting players. The setting of San Francisco, with some of the most epic locations and shots in cinema, make it a character all on its own, with its own unique flair and beauty. The music of Lalo Schifrin, a jazz composer who has worked with Don Siegel on previous projects, brought an atmosphere that is unmatched in any film, with the hypnotic and disturbing theme for Scorpio and the more noble and hard-edged main theme for Harry himself, an important proponent in the film's success. The movie was a box office success, which led to multiple sequels, as I mentioned earlier, and made Clint Eastwood a living legend. The movie continually reminds me that even individuals on one side of the law or the other are humans, and all humans have the capability to do bad things, but they also have the capability of doing good things. Harry was a flawed man, an anti-hero, that won the fans over because he truly did care more about justice than the city of San Francisco did, to the point where he'd simply take the law into his own hands, a rebel of sorts. Despite him shooting first and asking questions later, I don't think Harry is a fascist at all. I think he's just a man searching for purpose, and all of his life is in his work, so he ends up caring more about the rights of the victim and won't suffer any red tape from his bosses for simply doing his job. Do you incentivize crime by grossly protecting the rights of criminals for the media clout, or do you not overlook the rights of the victim, the law-abiding citizen, who simply wants to live life one day at a time, in peace? Only time will tell, so remember, if you're out looking for trouble in San Francisco, look out, because the city won't assign Dirty Harry cases, they will just turn them loose on you. Do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Thanks for watching and getting this far. For my next review, I pose the following questions. Do you ever wonder, out there in the universe, that there must be something better than man? How would a single NASA crew cope with the results of traveling at light speed due to the time dilation effect? Is it possible there are other Earth-like planets out there that have life, but this time humanity is the lowest form of life? Who are these talking apes that appear, and why does this planet look strangely familiar? All these questions and more on the next Nerdporial film review, the original 1968 classic, Planet of the Apes. Don't forget to check out my other video reviews and streams and hit the red subscribe button, smash a like, and ring the bell for notifications when new videos are up. Does man have any rights under ape law? Find out soon.